A big thank you to the NTEU and Palestinians for Melbourne, Unimelb fellows, because these, on today, particularly today, the International Day of Solidarity with the Palestinian people, to be in solidarity with us, in the past could have been just a like, could have been a tick, but the urgency of solidarity today is paramount. Dana just told you 20,000 people have been killed, there's 40,000 injured. In a normal situation, those 40,000 people might have somewhere upwards of 50, 80, 90% of chance of recovery. There's fuck all chance. There is not a functioning hospital in Gaza. Not a functioning hospital in Gaza. Today, 1% of the population of Gaza has died. That would be 260,000 Australians. There is so much more to do in solidarity with Palestinians today than to attend today and press like. The compulsion on each of you to activate your networks to do has been no greater. There's never been a greater time. We know what we need to do. We've seen it happen in the past. Unions have been at the forefront of action and changing worlds, whether it was the end of Vietnam, apartheid, and so many other actions. I was interviewed by Neil Mitchell and he was talking about the student strikes and how we needed to dial down the hate. I said, what's the hate? Well, you know, these students, I said, but students are seeing other students get killed. Why are you stripping them of their agency, Neil? But we've got to dial down the hate, Nasser, I said, but why? If a kid sees another kid get killed, what's wrong with that kid going out in the street and saying, why isn't my leader saying stop killing kids? But strikes, Nasser. I said, Neil, women went out on strike to get the vote. Are you okay with women voting, Neil? There's never, ever been a time that Palestinians needed you more. And particularly Palestinians, because they sit at a nexus. They sit at a nexus of struggles for so many oppressed peoples. I didn't acknowledge country at the start because I wanted to do it here because the struggle here against racist settler colonialism is the same struggle for Palestinian self-determination. It's the same struggle in Western Sahara. It's the same struggle in Kashmir, West Papua, Turtle Island, Aotearoa, in every settler colony across this earth, for every oppressed people, be they black, brown, Jew, Muslim, queer, or otherwise. The freedom of all of us is connected. Palestine is the most visible, which is why it needs your most attention. And in solidarity, that's what that means. I'm going to take you through, I'll get to that in a second. So when we say that this always was and always will Aboriginal land, we know what that means. I've ceased to acknowledge traditional owners because traditional creates some sort of concept of past tense. They are still the owners. As Palestine... And that was courtesy of Francesca Albanese, who did a wonderful presentation earlier this month. As Palestine always was and always will be Palestinian, and to be Palestinian is to be anything. Muslim, Christian, Jew, Samaritan, agnostic, atheist, McDonald's hamburger eater. Anyone can be Palestinian. The cruelty that is happening in Gaza doesn't happen in isolation. It happens when the world closes its eyes, as it has, because Israel is normal. Israel craves normalcy. Look at us at Eurovision. We've got actors and actresses. It is not a normal joint. It is a settler, racist, ethno-nationalist country embedded in every bit of white supremacism and hate that can manifest itself. But it can be better. Like every country, can be better, and it's our duty to make it better. It is an apartheid state. There are 8 types of Palestinians. 8 types of Palestinians, and in any world where there is more than one type of human being, that's a fucking problem. If there's 8 times, that's a huge fucking problem. It might not surprise you, but I'm the best of those. I say I'm the best of those, I'm actually the least connected of those too. As the best of those, what that means is I'm Western educated, Western assimilated, Western passport holder. I look like them, but I sound like us. It's a real disconnect for some white racists when I tell them that. But I'm most disconnected. My passport can't be stripped of me, but I've had the opportunity to live the great Australian dream. My fridge is full. I get to travel with an Australian passport. And, you know, sounding like us makes it a bit easier for me to get a job. The second type of Palestinian is a 48 Palestinian. We call them 48ers. The Israelis call us Israeli Arabs. They're citizens of the state of Israel, so they've got a passport. But there are over 50 laws that determine that they're not first class. They get to vote, but they can't live in certain communities because they don't meet the cultural and social construct of that society because they're not Jewish. And there's ways and means that they work out, because Dana is a name that could go either way. It's a Semitic name. Nasser, not so much. Muhammad, not so much. But Dana certainly is one. And so if Dana went to live in one of these communities, they might say, geez, we're not really sure if Dana is one of us or one of them. Because most Israeli Jews actually look like us. They're, you know, Semitic, Arab, African-looking people. Like there are Scarlett Johansson types, Benjamin Netanyahu types, you know, and no Palestinian denies Jewish connection to Palestine. We don't deny Jewish connection. We don't accept that it's superior. Nor do we accept that ours is superior. We accept that there's only one type of human on this precious earth, and we are all equal. And that anybody thinks they're better than somebody else. The problem's with them, not with this person. But if you're a 48 Palestinian, Dana goes to the admissions committee to live in a community. Can you imagine an admissions committee? So Dana, when did you serve in the IDF? What was your years of service? Well, I didn't serve in the IDF. Oh, were you injured? No, I wasn't injured. No worries, we'll get back to you, Dana. That was a quick interview. So she can't live in that community, but she's number 2 Palestinian. She's got a passport, she's a citizen, she gets to vote. I mean, the 2018 nation state law says, Dana, the state of Israel is for Jewish self-determination and Jewish self-determination alone. We want to make sure you understand you don't belong. She's a number 2 Palestinian, not quite a number 1. A number 3 Palestinian is a Palestinian that lives in East Jerusalem. They're not a citizen. They've got a Jerusalem ID, which means that they can live in Jerusalem, but at any time they have to prove that Jerusalem is the centre of their life. Now, as Dana told you, we're the most educated people in the world because we can't buy houses or land or anything, so we might as well spend that money on education. And so our brilliant young women and boys travel the world and, you know, just really uplift us and shine an example of what Palestine could be if you let us be free. And so Dana comes to Australia and she does her masters here, and you know her tutors go, "You're a superstar, Dana. I've organised a PhD for you." She gets a PhD, does a couple of years of consulting, and then goes back to Jerusalem. And then she gets a call from the Civil Administrative Authority and says, "So Dana, what we want to do is just make sure that you've fulfilled your obligations under an East Jerusalem ID, and we want to prove that Jerusalem is the centre of your life." And so Dana says, I was born in 1985, I went to Jerusalem Primary School. And they go, no, the past 10 years. Yeah, after Jerusalem Primary School, I went to Jerusalem High, the past 10 years. Okay, well, I've just come back. I did 3 years with Accenture in a consulting thing, and I did my PhD and my Masters at Melbourne University, and blah, blah, and they go, okay, so for the past 10 years, you've spent 8 years in Australia. Yeah, so Jerusalem hasn't been the centre of your life for the past 10 years. Residency revoked. Tens of thousands of Palestinian Jerusalemites have had their residency revoked. Millennia attachment to the land. Number 3 Pala. Number 4 Palestinian is a Palestinian who lives in the West Bank. They weren't part of the 1948 catastrophe, Nakba, or ethnic cleansing of Palestine, and they live in an ancestral piece of dirt that they've got connection to, and were never part of it. They're not citizens, they don't get to vote, they're under Israeli military law. Their kid gets snatched up and held in administrative detention for 6 months at a time for throwing a stone at a tank, or perhaps just walking to their sister's house to get dinner. Questioned in a foreign language, made to sign a confession in a language they don't understand, with no parent, no advocate present, tried in a military court by a judge who's a settler. 2 years, 99.9% conviction rate, because CSI works brilliantly in the military courts of Israel. Number 4 Pala. And number 5 Palestinian is a Palestinian who was ethnically cleansed in the demographic engineering that created a Jewish majority state in a land where there was a Jewish minority. like my father, driven out of their homes after massacres at the end of a bayonet, and ended up refugees inside historical Palestine from the river to the sea, but they're refugees. So they own no land, they live in refugee camps for now 75 years, they have no opportunity to vote, their kids get taken away, etc., but they, without the concept of land for rural people, they work itinerant jobs. Number 5, Number 6 Palestinian is a Palestinian that was ethnically cleansed outside of historic Palestine and lives in a collar country. Lebanon, Syria, Jordan, Egypt, perhaps in the past Iraq. And those Palestinians that might have gone there with a little bit of money, maybe a bit of gold, maybe married well and might have become citizens of those countries and have got a passport. And so they've had the benefit of being perhaps able to travel, maybe get a better job, etc. And that's a number 6 Palestinian. Number 7 Palestinian. Number 7 Palestinian is a Palestinian that was ethnically cleansed in 48, didn't make it into the West Bank, ended up in a collar country, but is a refugee. And is a refugee in one of those collar countries without citizenship, without paperwork, without the opportunity for job, is educated in an UNRWA unfunded school, is dependent on aid 75 years after they were thrown out of their home. And number 8 Palestinian is the Palestinian you see today who stands steadfast, unbroken in Gaza, who has suffered under the most brutal of racist attack that anyone could imagine. When unrestrained evil and unrestrained racism and unrestrained support manifest itself in one spot. It's like concentrating the sun's light with a magnifying glass on an ant. That's what Gaza is today. An apocalypse. They went back into a hospital this morning. Vision just came out. The doctors were thrown out, everyone at the risk of being murdered. They found the neonatal unit. The kids have started decomposing. You can only level that level. You can only subject human beings to that level of inhumanity when they've been degraded to a point of not being human. Solidarity means more than a like. Solidarity means more than coming to listen to Dana and I and Lachlan. Solidarity means doing something for human beings. That's a number 8 Palestinian. And if anyone tells you in the world that a person can have 8 different identities, and those 8 different identities are controlled by one body, and that one body doesn't give them the opportunity to vote, doesn't give them proportional representation, doesn't allow them to be free. There's only one word for that, and it's apartheid. And we know what that means. When South Africans tell you, when Nelson Mandela, Archbishop Desmond Tutu tells you, we know what that means we need to do. It means Lockheed Martin doesn't have a place here. It means when we see a genocide happening, genocide isn't just the extinguishing of populations, it's the extinguishing of culture. It's the extinguishing of connection to the land. They've destroyed every library, every tertiary institution, every secondary institution. There's not a hospital that works. In 1948, the Nakba that forced so many Palestinians out was driven at the end of a bayonet. And I say that often. At least that was, I heard somebody say, there was a little bit of honour in that. Somebody might have resisted and died. But what the ethnic cleansing of Gaza is a grenade. They've rolled in a grenade. Gaza's going to be uninhabitable for a generation, perhaps 2. And where are those kids going to be educated? And where are their families going to be when those kids are getting educated? They're not going to be in Gaza. And if you were a refugee in Gaza, living in a refugee camp for 75 years with no connection to the dirt other than being less than a day's walk to where your grandmother is buried, but that fence denies you that. Your religion denies you that, aided and abetted by a Western imperialistic system that says they're right, they belong, they're normal, you don't. Why would you go back? This is a 10 or 15 year delayed onset ethnic cleansing, and we cannot sit by and idly allow it to happen. This is a calculated and vindictive plan to move Gaza to somewhere else. Be under no illusion. The motion that this division, the NTEU Vic division, I saw it online, it was fantastic. Go out to your branches. We need everybody to be passing these motions. We need to be working with other Unionists for Palestine. If you haven't connected to them, please do. Don't allow yourself to be caught into both siderism. There is no both sides. Somebody is getting the shit kicked out of them by somebody else. It is very clear that it's not complex. We understand as Australians, as settlers, what settler colonialism looks like. The language of settler colonialism is violence. We see it here, Indigenous deaths in custody. We see it in here with youth incarceration. We see it in here with kids getting taken away from their parents. We know how it's manifested itself. There is no two sides. There is one side, and it's a shared humanity. If you can't sign on to shared humanity, that's okay. Just don't expect for us to want you to be on the bus with us, because tomorrow is going to exist. A tomorrow where we'll all live together as equals will happen. The arc of moral justice does pivot back to the right world. And when that happens, and you know, I say this a couple of times, most recently to a trades hall, I've met a lot of South Africans. My professional business was in property and finance, and I met a lot of South Africans, and they had very thick Afrikaners voices, and every one of them was against apartheid. Every one of them, and it's fantastic. I'm so excited to meet these people that were against apartheid. And I say, when did you come to Australia? And they say 1997, and I go, straight after Mandela got out of jail. No, but I was against it. So why didn't you leave in 78, 79, 82, 85? Leave 94 if he gets out of jail in 95. At least then you. But if you leave in 99, guess what? You were all for apartheid, but just not so happy when other people got to vote. There's going to be a lot of post-Palestine liberation Zionists who are always for Palestine. That's why we're taking receipts. Know that you're on the right side of history, you're in the right place. Don't let this blood go to waste, please. There's never been a more important and urgent time for you to connect. There's a Trade Unionists for Palestine's sign-on letter. There's over 3,000 people have signed it. Put your name on there. We are stronger together. We are stronger together. I mean, you should get some comfort that the Trade Unionists for Palestine got 3,000 names on it, and they're normal names, normal people like each of us. The statement against anti-Semitism, which is fantastic in context. We're all against anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, homophobia, all that sort of hate. Actually, before the attack on me, the Australian had this wonderful line from my rally speech. Nasser Mashni, president of the Australia-Palestine Network, said that this rally was a rally against settler colonialism. It's against racism. It's against all hate, anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, homophobia. And if those attributes look like any of you, you don't belong here. Peter Dutton's got a rally down the corner. I'm sure he'll welcome you. I thought some of my best work, but you know, they thought I was a bad guy. The statement against anti-Semitism, which should stand alone, but today is being used as a way to silence us, which is why, saying the word Palestine is anti-Semitic today. Wearing a keffiyeh is anti-Semitic today. The rise in anti-Palestinian racism, which is different to Islamophobia, is astronomical. We had a woman a graduate lawyer in a prestigious city law firm, liked a post saying, Q&A, you are bastards for being mean to Nasser. And the partner, an equity partner in that law firm, made a complaint to HR. She was called in and said, unlike that, and maybe you should start looking somewhere else. A kid went to a cultural day in New South Wales, come dressed in your culture, went in a cafe, they went, you need to go home. That's hate. So anti-Palestinian racism is not Islamophobia. So this anti-Semitism statement, which we should all be party to, but is being used maliciously to silence us. Have a look at the names on there. There's a reason our name's not on there, because we don't want to be on there with John Howard. We don't want to be on there with all these billionaires, etc., because we are against anti-Semitism. Anti-Zionism is not anti-Semitism. Wanting Palestine to be free from the river to the sea is not anti-Semitic. Anti-Semitic is wanting only half. Hate and racism is wanting only half the people to be free from the river to the sea. And that's Zionism, and that's the apartheid state of Israel. Thank you, everyone.